the seeds of self-care depend on your own work. But what I've designed is I've actually said that there are things that are so easy to do, but there are also things that are so easy not to do. And I think one really has to go and see that if one can concentrate on the seeds, that's why I've called it the seeds. You've got to concentrate on sleep, on exercise, on education, on diet, and on socialize. And I'd just like to touch something on each one of that, but I'd like to ask you a question. What is the purpose of being in business? Because I see a lot of people in my practice where I've got to deal with people in business. And 90% of them say that the purpose of being in business is to make money. Unfortunately, to make money is actually the purpose of being in business. Sorry, the function of being in business. The purpose of being in business is to stay in business, to make a difference to people's lives, and to satisfy your customers and your clients. Now, my question to each one of you that is listening now is, what do you think you are doing to make sure that you stay in business? Because often we've got to start looking after ourselves. And I think that's something that we have to start looking at. And if in my practice, I actually say, let's see whether we can do each one of these little items that I'm going to discuss, your sleep, your exercise, education, diet, and socialize, every single day. You've got to be able to have a little tick box. And I actually give the people a sheet of paper, and each one of them is going to do something in each one of these columns. And I think that's exactly what I'm trying to say, is in what way can you actually do something about your sleep? And if one looks at sleep, and I've just actually done a course on sleep therapy, and I'm an accredited sleep therapist. And one of the things that we need to be able to look at is that we definitely need 7 hours or more of sleep. A lot of people say I can get away with less. But one of the reasons that we actually have to look at getting enough sleep is that it's also going to help our memories and will help us gain new information. There are so many books you can read about, is that if you don't get enough sleep, you're actually going to find that there's lots of diseases that can actually enter our body. Our metabolism and weight is actually affected by sleep. There's a little switch in your system called the leptin. And if that little switch doesn't go on, you actually just keep on waking up, and then you want to eat again, because there's a switch that actually switches off once you get enough sleep. So your cardiovascular health, I mean, there's so many areas that you can work on just by improving your health and improving your sleep. Now, I don't know if you know that a lot of people will take actually too much coffee at night, and they say, yeah, but the coffee doesn't affect me. But coffee and alcohol and sleeping tablets only help you to go into a very light sleep, never into deep sleep. And you need to be able to get into deep sleep before your body can start looking after itself and replenishing itself. So one of the things we also need to be able to look at is, in what way can you actually go and look and see whether you're concentrating enough on your sleep. My advice to you also is, if you go to the doctor and the doctor doesn't ask you anything about your sleep, I think you need to change your doctor, because there are so many problems that we find that people coming to us with, and that it actually can be boiled down to sleep. The same as if you go to a doctor and he doesn't, and you're over 50 years old and he doesn't take your blood pressure, he's also not possibly doing the job that he has to do. So, Yanni, we're talking about maybe change to maybe taking a bit more alcohol, but ideally 2 or 3 hours before you're going to go to sleep, and not as a sleeping tablet. A lot of people try that. Do. But I think for me, is really to try and turn your bedroom and your sleep routine and your sleep hygiene into something really, really healthy. Jan touched on exercise. I think for me, if one can start your day off with exercising effectively, it doesn't have to be 3 or 4 hours of running, or run a 10K. It can just be a little 20 minutes of just getting your heart rate up. And I don't know if any of you saw Robin Sharma has got a nice little article on the 5 a.m. club. So if you can go to bed at about 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you can actually sleep until 5, and you suddenly find that you've had enough sleep. So when you do get up at 5 o'clock, you can just go and do some exercise. My own routine that we actually try and do is that when we wake up at 5:30, from 5:30 to 6, there's always some type of exercise, whether it's running on a little treadmill or running on your own sort of little trampoline or getting onto a bike and going for something. It doesn't have to be more than 30 minutes, but you should be getting your heart rate going over 120. The other thing which is really, really important to me is that by exercising early, you can actually see that you can actually get more done. And I think that for me is really important. I often don't even try and go more than 1 kilometer away from home, and then I'll turn around and I'll come home again. So I don't go for a 4 or 5K run. I'll go for a 1K run, turn around, come back again. If I'm feeling okay, I'll turn around and go back and do it again. So I think for me, the important thing is, are you getting enough exercise? Avoid perfection. A lot of people want to go and run and they want to count how far they've gone and what the time was, and they work on all these things. But for me, it's important to see whether you can actually work on all those levels and then make sure that you're doing something about. So really, sleep is important, but exercise is just as important. It's not something that you've got to go and run a marathon. But if you start your day every day with 20, 30 minutes of exercise, you'll really see what a big difference can do. In my own life, I find it very, very difficult to do something after I get back from work. So if I get back at 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 90% of the time I haven't got the time, or I don't have the motivation to actually go and do the exercising. So I find it very easy to do it in the morning before everything starts. And then for me, the important thing is there's another thing called education. There's so much books, there's so many people and books and things that you've read. So I actually then also make sure that I get at least 10 pages of reading every single morning. So I start my day with the exercising, and I also start my day with reading. Never ever check emails, never ever look at Facebook, never ever open my cell phone. I will first do my exercise and then do some reading. So just think of it as 10 pages of reading every single morning. That 10 pages I read this morning didn't make any real big difference to my life. But what about 10 pages every single day for 365 days? That's 3,650 pages that you've done. And I've just seen that there's so many people, especially here in Cape Town, they get into their cars at 5 o'clock in the morning because they want to miss the traffic. They fight the traffic until they get to town, and then all of a sudden they go and see that they have to now sit at work at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they've done nothing and listened to the radio. Why don't you turn your car into a library that you can put in a TED talk or put in a podcast? You can try something that you can work on there. And I think that then becomes one of the most important things for me, is that if I can change the things that I'm putting into my mind, and I can look at my sleep, I can look at my exercise, I can look at the way that I'm actually educating myself. So you can actually go and explore your own strengths, find out what you're good at. Go and find some article that you can actually read up on, and then you go and see if you can find that. But take action. I think it's really, really important is to take the action, put everything into place, and then you start working it and you start doing things exactly what you have to do. So what I'm saying to the people really is every single day, take your little list, and it's got seeds on it, SEEDS, and make sure that you've done something about sleep, make sure you've done something about exercise, make sure that you've done something to really to educate yourself, change your mindset, and really that little self-talk that Jan was talking about is really important, to see that you actually change your own attitude and change your whole thing. Really, if you look at the diet, and I think there's so many books and so many articles that we can go and read on diet, but for me, the important thing that we have to look at here is what are you eating, in what way are you actually working on yourself. I've always read a nice book, and someone said, eat from the tree and not from the factory. So that's something that I'm going to look at, because anything that comes out of a box or anything that's processed or anything that you can just buy very, very easily, that invariably ends up being a cheat food. And I think one has to be able to work on that. Know your own goals of your own health. I mean, look at your own body weight, your own health, your own things. Be honest with yourself and where you're eating. Are you eating too many sweets? Are you eating too many carbs? Do you have a medical condition? But as we get older, weight doesn't seem to drop that easily. But so really, what we're also saying here is, if you are going to be eating anything, try and avoid the tablets, and try and avoid the chemical enhanced supplements that you can actually eat. You can find vitamin C and vitamin D and vitamin B, all the vitamins that you need to do in natural plants. And that's something that we've always tried to do, is make sure that you can actually do and work on that. The other thing on diet is avoid coffee. I know people love a cup of coffee and they'll start their day off with a cup of coffee. I've always said, drink 2 glasses of water before you have your first cup of coffee. That for me is really important, because once you've actually had two glasses of water, you've now got your stomach is now lined with water. If you then go and have the cup of coffee and you're sitting on the veranda or you're sitting on the stoop watching the sun come up, you can actually then go and show that it's not going to affect your system. And I think that for me is one of the things that we're actually doing is, yes, the alcohol is important, but once again, also in moderation, and we can actually work on all those things. Cut out sugar. Sugar is actually something which they call the white death. Remember, they say brown sugars are much better. They say no, but the brown sugar is only got possibly coloring or molasses that's going to make it look like brown, but it is still not very healthy. And then one of the most important things about our diets is also stay on top of all your medical conditions, and just really go and see that you go and do a good checkup. And I think Jan used a nice little word, checkup from the neck up. You can actually make sure that your mind is also functioning very, very healthily. And then I think for me, one of the important things here is also to go and see that we look at our socializing. Now, socialize to me is not necessarily that you're going to go and meet and party every single night, but it's actually socializing in your own social skills. You go and see in what way are you networking. One of the best places I've been, and really, if you go to the PSASA meetings, you can actually see that you're actually meeting new people. Chamber of Commerce is something which I found very, very useful. I meet a lot of people there. But for me, it's also very important in the socializing thing is, what type of messages are you giving to people? What type of ways are you actually talking to people? Because one of the worst places to socialize is actually around the coffee shop or even the coffee counter, where you're standing around and someone says, hey, do you know what Bruce did the other day? And everyone is really interested, but in what way is it actually very conducive to that person? But you often find that if you're the person that always brings little tidbit stories and stories about other people, you will find that your own socializing skills become less and less and less, and people will start avoiding you because they don't want necessarily to come and be with you. So make an effort to catch up with people in person. I mean, that's one of the best things. I mean, even now, if one does any of these Zoom sessions, look at the whole list of all the people that are there and find whether you've got some interesting person that can actually match your skills or your interests or your maybe your own social skills that you might need to develop, or even your own areas that you need to develop for yourself. Make an appointment with that guy. Phone the guy and say, I'd like to have a cup of coffee with you. I'd like to have a cup of tea with you. But most of us nowadays end up doing a Zoom session with people instead of seeing that we can actually go and be with people face to face. And then one's got to recognize the toxic situations and relationships. There are lots of people that aren't good for you. And I would rather just turn around and walk away from a meeting where people are talking about negativity. So in that whole negativity area, don't stick around with people that are very, very negative. And then one of the real good tips that I always try and find is find someone that can be a good mentor to you. Now, it doesn't have to be a mentor. It could be a spiritual mentor. It can be a social mentor. It can be an educational mentor. It can be a psychologist. It can be, find someone that you can actually go and talk to. If you think of all the really, really good sporting people, they've always got a coach. They've got a coach that they go to every single day. Even though the person's earning 20 or 30 million rand, he actually still goes to a coach every single day. And then something which is really important to me is that people take this list and they've got to come back to me. So whenever they come back to me, they've got to come back with at least one thing, one action that they've done in the last week of every one of those things. What have they done about their sleep? Have they to improve or to change? What have they done about exercising? What have they done about education or diet or socializing? So my challenge to the people really is, what do you think that you need to stop doing? And the moment you actually stop something, you can actually start something new. I see so many people that say they want to go and start exercising, they're going to start going to gym, but suddenly they find out that they haven't stopped, they don't stop going to bed at 11. So it's quite a nice exercise to have your own sheet with these 5 points on, and then you get every single day you've got to do one thing for each of those 5. And once you've done that for 21 to 63 days, 21 days in a row will give you a habit. 63 days in a row will make it a lifestyle change. And the moment you can concentrate on all 5 of these things, I think you find that your own self-care is now starting to make a difference and you're starting to look at yourself. So I've always got a challenge, and I've said to people, if any one of the people listening today would be interested in sending a little list to me, I mean, I'm sure we'll share information with each other about where they can get hold of us. But anyone that sends me a list of 5 things that he's done, or on each one of those, what has he done about his sleep? What's he done about his education? What's he done about exercising, diet, and socializing? I can send that person even more information because I'm interested in people that take action. So a lot of people say, yes, I'll do it, and I think I'll do it tomorrow, I'll start tomorrow. But the question is, can you do it today? So put up this list. My wife and I have got a challenge. If we've got those 5 things to do, the person that doesn't want to do one thing of each one of those 5 things has to make supper tonight. And if we've decided to go and eat out, the person that doesn't do his 5 things for the day has got to pay for the supper tonight. So it's actually just setting yourself challenges. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I found is, in what way can we actually work with each other, help each other, but it's something that you have to go and do, put it all into the action that you've got there. So it's not very difficult, but I know that there are hundreds of things more. People are saying, yes, but why don't I concentrate on my religion or on my spirituality? Well, you can put that under education if you want to. Why don't I look, in what way are you looking after yourself? Because every one of us needs to be able to see how we can actually work on that. And if you look at this little slide in front of me, really 5% of the people actually achieve this. It's a philosophy, it's an attitude. You got to take action, but it's so easy not to do it. And that's where we actually end up with 95% of the people fail to do this because it sounds so simple. But there's a challenge that you've got. If you do these 5 things every single day, you can find that you start taking control for yourself. There are many, many more books that you can read. There are hundreds of books. And I think there's so many articles that you can go and download. Just go and look at a TED talk on any one of these topics and see whether you can change that. So I see my time is getting closer. And thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity. For anyone who wants a challenge, see whether you can send me your little list, and I'll send you even more information.